Okay, today, President Trump reportedly set to be briefed on all U.S. options in Iran as deadly protests intensify. One thing he has done is hit the regime and those doing business with it in the wallet with a huge 25% tariff. Fox News contributor and former Secretary of State to President Trump, Mike Pompeo, joins us now. So great to see you, Mr. Secretary. So what are the options, the realistic options that are on the table that the Trump administration is looking at right now?
Well, good morning, Charlie. They've got a wide range of options. Some of them are already underway. Some of them are informational, right? Providing support, telling the Iranian people that we are with you, that we will support you. I am confident that has already made a difference on the ground and put the regime at more risk. Along the spectrum, there would certainly be cyber efforts. That is, efforts to go after the ability of the regime to communicate and to try and help the Iranian people communicate amongst themselves. So two alternatives. I've heard talk about Starlink, but making sure that the protesters all across this large nation, 80 million people, can communicate and continue to rally against this regime that has destroyed their just common way of life. It expands to kinetic things. The president has talked about that, saying if they kill people in numbers, that he's going to go do something that is more serious, much like Operation Midnight Hammer. There's no doubt that there are now hundreds of Iranians that have been killed, so I think they've probably crossed the line President Trump set out. Ballistic missile program would be a good target. The IRGC, which is likely to try and take control of the country should the ayatollah flee, has been a nemesis of the United States of America, tried to kill the president and others for years. A wide range of alternatives available to the administration and a president who seems determined to make sure that the Iranian people have a chance for a better way of life.
And of course, the only reason we're seeing those images right there is because of the Starlink capabilities. And we know that the Iranian regime is actually going after people who have the Starlinks because they don't want the world to see those images. Earlier today, we spoke to Masih Alinejad, who's an Iranian-American activist, and she was born in Iran and fled. And she was talking about the hypocrisy on the left when it comes to these protests. I want to play a clip and get you to react.
The silence of left and liberal in America, in Europe, is not an accidental silence. It's an ideological silence because they believe that our suffering of the Iranian women, Iranian men, thousands of people being killed or injured, it's not like the thing that they can talk about it because it will expose their hypocrisy and it will expose that how they sympathize with our killers, with Islamist terrorists.
You know, we've been through years of campus protests talking about the rights of people. Why do you think it is that the left is so silent about the rights of these Iranian people?
Charlie, it is a glaring hypocrisy, and I think it tells the truth about who these protesters actually are. They are certainly in sympathy with Islamists to some degree. It's certainly the case, too, that there's a little bit of this that is just the hard left doing anything they can to undermine President Trump. It's so plainly obvious. Look at these videos. It's so plainly obvious that President Obama had it wrong in Iran. He said that this regime could be negotiated with. President Biden tried to do the same thing. So it's a little bit U.S. domestic politics, but it is a lot of their worldview of not bothered by regimes that continue to destroy the rights of minorities, but rather in league with leftist ideologies.
Well, and it certainly does seem like it has a feel that this one is different than some of the previous protests in Iran. Mike Pompeo, thank you so much for joining us.
Charlie, great to be with you this morning. So long.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.